Two phones, both ultras, both over £1,000, both laying claim to be the best of 2026 in terms of an ultra phone. The S26 Ultra is the one you know to be the most reliable, the most common one you find, the most default when you pick up off the shelf and grab as your next ultra phone, and is backed up by Samsung's huge marketing machine. But the Xiaomi 17 Ultra, on the other hand, provides a complete rethink of what you expect from an ultra phone and is probably one of the most ambitious. But today, we're going to compare both in terms of their performance, design, display, build, and of course its cameras. And at the end, we're going to tell you which ultra phone is best. Let's find out. Both these phones run the exact same chipset, which is a Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, except for one component. The S26 Ultra actually has a slightly modified one, which makes it Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 for Galaxy, so it's specific. But when you run it through 3D Mark's Lifestyle Extreme benchmark tests, you do get some pretty interesting results actually, because firstly, the 17 Ultra throttles less than the S26 Ultra, but the latter does achieve an one-off higher loop score, which is pretty interesting. Then as you go further down, heat and battery consumption does favor the S26 Ultra over that of the 17 Ultra, even though that does have a larger battery. And on the battery front, quick spec breakdown. The S26 Ultra gets a 5,000 mAh battery, 60 watts of wired charging and 25 watts of wireless charging, but things are very much different on the 17 Ultra, because there you get 6,000 mAh, 90 watts of wired charging, 50 watts of wireless charging. But in real terms, what does that mean? The S26 Ultra will recharge from 0 to 75% in around about 30 minutes using that 60-watt charger. The 17 Ultra, although it has a larger battery at 6,000 mAh, will achieve that exact same score in the exact same time, save a minute or two here or there. We don't actually run benchmark tests themselves, but Mr. Who's the Boss has actually ran one, and the S26 Ultra does actually perform better in terms of battery versus the 17 Ultra, but real world terms, you're going to get multi-day out of both of these. On the OS front, HyperOS 3.0, Android 16 on the 17 Ultra, and here you get a promise of 6 years of OS updates, and it has all of the AI features you'd ever want at all times pretty much. And then you get great customization options, especially in the lock screen, which does very much represent what you get on iOS and Apple devices. It's an almost direct copy by all measures. On the other side, you get Samsung's probably the most reliable UI in the Android game, sad to say. I do prefer ColorOS, but this is still pretty great. One UI 8.5 on the S26 Ultra is great. It's completely been refined. Again, it runs Android 16. Here you get 7 years of OS updates, which is sick. And then the OS in operation is fast, smooth, and there's that air of familiarity with One UI as well. Also here, you do get the same suite of AI features. In fact, AI features on this phone are probably way more than you'll ever use on any other phone, but they're absolutely wild on the S26 Ultra. And you also get the benefit of Perplexity AI being built in on this phone, and it can be triggered by the Hey Plex prompt as well. So AI is a big thing on the S26 Ultra. On the whole, though, performance for both these Ultra phones is stellar, but personally, the larger battery, better thermal management, and faster charging of the 17 Ultra are the reasons this wins the first category. Both of these Ultra phones have huge claims about their cameras, but they approach it in very different ways. The S26 cameras break down as follows: 200 megapixel wide, 10 megapixel telephoto, 50 megapixel telephoto, and 50 megapixel ultra wide. The 17 Ultra's approach is slightly different, because here you get 3 lenses, but they're powered by Leica. You get a 50 megapixel main, 200 megapixel periscope telephoto, and a 50 megapixel ultra wide. The Xiaomi 17 Ultra overall as a camera system is the more reliable, capable, and natural looking here. And let's start off by looking at the main lens output here, because the Xiaomi does a lot to retain what you see with your eyes in the images. At times those images can look flat sometimes, but it's actually down to a more natural image processing. The S26 Ultra, on the other hand, clearly has some odd AI intervention happening here, and it can over sharpen images that don't really need it. It can at times capture a nicer image than the 17 Ultra, but as an overall usage between both the colors, dynamic range, sharpness, and balances images on both, the 17 Ultra looks better than the S26 Ultra. Nighttime produces somewhat similar results, as the main lens on the S26 Ultra again over processes at night, adding more vibrancy, but the 17 Ultra does almost none of that and keeps the same natural look. Both, though, do struggle with street lights. There is a weird flare going on here, but neither display any noise at all. The telephoto is another space where the versatility of the Periscope, which can continuously focus on the 17 Ultra, offers images that just look as good as the main lens in terms of the colors and detail the S26 Ultra could almost go toe-to-toe with. However, at times it can blur out text or create blurry images when zoomed in up to 30x. Then, if you pixel peep on some of the 70mm shots or some images where you've used, for example, the 17 Ultra's Periscope telephoto, you do see a better retention of detail as well. The S26 Ultra also adds a layer of vibrancy that makes even sort of like grayer looking days brighter than they actually are, and that's why the more natural look of the 17 Ultra looks nice here and is my preference. Ultra wide is something I think favors the S26 Ultra though. You get a lot or less of that warped look as an image, and fine details are captured here better than the 17 Ultra. In scenes of multiple subjects, such as bright grass, darker foreground, the S26 Ultra is able to create a nicer separation versus the 17 Ultra. I don't think either are particularly standout, but do a good job overall, but it is the S26 Ultra which does add a nicer output here. Video on both tops out at 8K, and 30 FPS, but 4K 30 is what we used here, and both do a good overall job. But I think the Samsung does offer a nicer overall, sharper image, and when comparing both, they have a better job in dealing with things like grey skies, foliage, etc. The 17 Ultra isn't bad, it actually retains a natural look, but in video, that extra vibrancy and color from the S26 Ultra makes it stand out even more. But you also benefit with the 26 Ultra is the addition of horizon lock, which means you can, when enabled in settings, you can essentially rotate your phone and it locks into a subject the entire time and you'd never ever know, and it works incredibly well. Overall, the camera system on both is very good, but the extra detail, clarity, more natural color profile of the 17 Ultra stands out over the sadly older processing style and camera system of the S26 Ultra. On the design front, both phones retain much of the same look and feel as previous gen, minus a few tweaks. For example, the 17 Ultra has changed their volume buttons to look more cylindrical, more clickable, a bit more premium. On the 26 Ultra, it's the landing of the camera housing that is actually the big change, but there's also one, and that is related directly to the S Pen, because here now, because it sits on the curvature of the frame, it can only be inserted flush in one particular way. And when you compare it to the S25 Ultra, that is a bit of a downgrade, because the previous gen would actually just slot straight in regardless of whatever orientation you use. The display, both take a slightly different approach here. The 17 Ultra gets a 6.9-inch OLED with 5000 nits of peak brightness and 120 Hz, with 2160 Hz of PWM dimming and 92% screen to body ratio. The S26 Ultra has a screen to body ratio of 90%, still at 6.9-inch OLED, 120 Hz, 2600 nits of peak brightness with no PWM dimming. Both, I would say, look incredible when watching back content. You get deep, rich backs, super vibrant color on both as well. So any content you watch on either will look really, really good. One thing I would say is there are a few quirks though. The anti-reflective display on the S26 Ultra is a downgrade by all measures versus the S25 Ultra, and is less anti-reflective than before. And there's a reason for that, is because this now has a very unique industry first privacy display, which you can enable as standard or at max. If you enable it at max, you then come across a display that weirdly doesn't look any better at max, flat, with its brightness at peak, than a budget entry-level IPS LCD Android tablet, which is pretty wild to put out there. But you can see the granularity in the images of the icons as well. If you pixel peep, if you put it into dark mode, it's even more present. And actually, if you leave privacy display on at all, it does dilute and turn off almost half of the pixels on the display as well. So there is an offset. The new feature is great, but it does impact overall display experience. Lastly, in terms of durability, the S26 Ultra has the same IP68 dust and water resistant, whilst the 17 Ultra will actually get you IP69, which means using this out and about, you can drop the 17 Ultra in boiling hot water and not have any concerns. Don't know why you would, but just put it out there. And the S26 Ultra may not. Also, the S26 Ultra has actually dropped the titanium frame and gone back to aluminium, which is kind of hilarious. But if you did buy this S26 Ultra and you're concerned about its durability and it being not as durable as the 17 Ultra, well, FNT Case has the perfect case for you. And it's a multifaceted case, because not only can you pop this phone into its most durable one, which offers you 360 degrees of protection the entirety around the frame. So that's perfect for, say, someone who's a hiker, a runner, somebody who likes to go mountain climbing, or if you're someone who likes to work with their hands a lot with manual labor, but you don't want to compromise on your phone, that case is actually perfect for you. But it's also great for those who just want a more durable case, but don't want the 360 degree protection. Well, you can actually customize this case with what you buy and remove that front display, which has a screen protector built in, but you still get the benefits of all the protection because it has the front lip, which means if you lay it flat on a surface, it won't contact any surface itself, and you still get all the great durability. Functionality wise, both case scenarios, you do actually get a kickstand built into the back, which means portrait and landscape viewing is ideal. So if you're interested in one of these cases, and there's this and so many more via the website, check out the link in description. On both the design and display front though, the S26 Ultra's extra features do make it a reason to buy, but sometimes those work against it. And the extra peak brightness and thinner borders on the 17 Ultra make it really difficult to pick a clear winner in this space. The Ultra phone most would buy would be this Samsung S26 Ultra, and I can see exactly why, because you get a reliable and proven OS, great build, and there's an all-new privacy display feature, which most would probably put in place right away. But personally, we would recommend this Xiaomi 17 Ultra because it's a complete rethink of what you can expect from a flagship ultra level phone. You get the best cameras you can possibly buy right now, which are available to everyone, I would say, in this phone, powered again by Leica, and then you get the versatility of those cameras. It's also got a really good reliable OS, stunning display, rapid recharging, and incredible overall performance. So that would be our winner of the two, and our personal preference. Cost is almost exactly the same, spec and performance again is almost exactly the same. But we want you to let us know your thoughts on which of these phones you would buy with your own hard-earned money. Drop us what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe because it really supports the channel. Until the next one, as always, we out.